At 02:15 hours local time, a Ukrainian FP-1 drone drove nose first into a fuel tanker parked dead center on the last road into Crimea, and 40,000 liters of diesel went up in a column of fire that climbed roughly 250 feet and was visible from 15 miles away. That tanker had traveled the final leg of a journey that started under 124 miles away, at the edge of a strike envelope covering every crossing in the region. It was one of 50 vehicles, fuel, artillery shells, grad rockets, packed onto a single two-lane road, carrying enough supplies to keep a frontline sector fed for a week. And in the next 30 seconds, 4 more drones would find 4 more of them. Rewind 90 seconds. At 02:14, 18 drones bloomed across the Pantsir S1 radar screen a mile east of that same bridge, 8 closing from the northwest, 10 from the north, all under 260 feet, all converging at 68 miles an hour. The crew manning that Pantsir had one job: hold the last intact crossing between Crimea and the southern front. 8 drones for the bridge, 10 for the fuel, 12 missiles on the rails, 90 seconds on the clock, and no way on earth to cover both. This is a story about patience. Not speed, not firepower, patience. Because Ukraine did not chase these 50 trucks across a peninsula. It did something colder. It reached across that 124-mile envelope and destroyed a completely different bridge 6 hours earlier. A bridge called Chonhar, 43 miles to the east, and the moment Chonhar dropped into the water, every fuel tanker, every ammunition truck, every rocket carrier leaving Crimea had exactly one road left to take, the last road, this road. Chonhar had been the artery. For more than 2 years it carried fuel, ammunition, and personnel from Crimea into the occupied south. The shorter crossing, the faster route, the road Russia's entire logistics timetable was built around. When it collapsed, the supply chain didn't stop. It couldn't. The front still needed feeding. So the trucks funneled onto the alternative, one 2-lane bridge, and they began to pile up. And here is the part the Russian side never saw coming. Their air defense was there. The Pantsir, a Tor M2, a Zhitel electronic warfare vehicle. But none of it was positioned to protect the convoy. It was there to protect the bridge, because after Chonhar fell, the bridge was the obvious next target. The trucks just happened to be parked in the middle of that defensive zone, and the moment 50 loaded vehicles stopped moving inside a kill box, that zone stopped being a shield and became a trap with the lid already closed. The Russians believed they were guarding a river crossing. Ukraine believed something simpler and far more patient. Destroy one road, wait for everything to find the only road left, then take it all in a single window. Chonhar had been the easy problem. One bridge, one target, one direction. What was inbound for this crossing was 18 drones aimed at 2 targets in the same 90 seconds, and no answer that could save both. To understand how the last road became a trap, go back 6 hours, to the bridge that started it all. At 2017 hours, 14 Ukrainian drones came for the Chonhar crossing from 2 separate directions. 10 were FP-1 one-way attack drones, fixed-wing aircraft carrying structural warheads with delayed fuses, built to punch through a hard surface and detonate inside. Behind them came 4 heavy strike drones, each hauling a far larger explosive load. All 14 crossed at 60 to 80 meters, deliberately split across 2 flight lines wide enough to force the defender's radar to divide its attention. That splitting was not an accident. It was the entire plan. A Russian Podlet K-1 surveillance station, roughly 7.5 miles southeast, caught them first. That radar is a specialist, a low-altitude set built to see what ordinary search radar loses in ground clutter. It carries no weapons. Its only purpose is to hand a clean picture to the systems that can kill, and within seconds, it handed 14 tracks to 2 of them. A Pantsir S1 a mile east of the bridge, and a Tor M2 2 miles south. Here is where the math turned against the defense. The Pantsir S1 is a short-range point defense system. The last ring, the weapon that guards the high-value site when everything else has slipped past. On paper, it is formidable. Its fire control can guide 4 missiles at once, 4 separate targets, tracked and engaged simultaneously. But 4 is not 14. Picture a doorman with exactly 4 hands, when 14 people rush the door at the same instant from 2 different streets. He can grab 4. He is fast, he is trained, he does not miss. He seizes 4 cleanly. But while his 4 hands are full, the other 10 simply walk past, because he has no 5th hand, and no time to grow one. That is precisely what happened. The Pantsir dropped 4 drones in quick succession, 2 FP1s and 2 heavy drones, before any crossed the 2-mile line. Clean kills. But those 4 engagements locked all 4 guidance channels for the length of a reload cycle. And a reload cycle costs seconds. At 95 kilometers an hour, every unopposed second is another chunk of ground eaten. By the time the Pantsir reacquired, the fastest FP1s had already slipped inside its engagement window. Too close, too low, too fast to catch on the way back out. The Tor M2 took the remainder and killed 2 more in its opening 8 seconds. But it burned roughly 5 seconds per engagement, and in 5 seconds a surviving drone covered another 430 feet. 2 kills were not enough. Even the hand-aimed Zu-23-2 crews at the approaches tore 2 more out of the air with twin 23mm barrels, and still 6 got through. And a bridge does not dodge, it does not scatter, it does not take cover. It sits where it was built and absorbs whatever reaches it. 6 heavy drones reached it. The heavy drones struck first, 2 detonations that ripped open the deck and cratered the approach ramp. Then the FP1s did the thing they were designed to do. Their delayed fuses did not go off on contact. Each warhead drove through the roadway and fired inside the structural joint underneath. Blast pouring into load-bearing steel instead of open air. 4 hit the span at 4 different points. The connections failed in sequence. The center reinforcement severed. The main span buckled under its own weight and dropped, sinking through the very gaps the warheads had opened. By 2022 hours, the Chonhar bridge had ceased to exist as a road. And that collapse would decide something far worse than the loss of one bridge. It had just written the death sentence for the next road over, and the convoy about to crawl onto it. Within hours, every vehicle scheduled to cross Chonhar was rerouted west to the last road-capable crossing left, and Ukrainian operators had been counting on exactly that. They did not scramble. They watched. They watched the first trucks turn onto the highway, and they began to tally. Fuel tankers from the depot to the south, ammunition trucks from inland storage, a Ural 4320 loaded with 122mm Grad rockets. Behind it, a Kamaz 5350 packed with FPV drones, lithium batteries, generators, and coils of fiber optic cable, the kind of single truck that keeps a whole sector's drone war running. Every one slid into a column getting longer and tighter by the minute. Behind the Ukrainian front, 18 FP1 drones were being fitted to their rails. 8 for the bridge, 10 for the convoy. And still, the operators were in no hurry, because every minute they waited, Russia packed more onto that one road. Spacing shrank from 60 meters to 30, then less. 40,000-liter tankers came to rest within 100 feet of ammunition carriers. The column stretched back nearly 2/3 of a mile, and every tanker in the queue was one more target that would never need its own drone. Patience wasn't just a tactic, it was multiplying the target list for free. The Russians did have an electronic warfare answer, an R-330Zh Zhitel, a mile and a half behind the tail of the column. The Zhitel is a mobile jamming system, and its specialty is drowning out satellite navigation signals, the GPS and GLONASS links that guide a drone flying a pre-programmed route. Against the right kind of drone, it is a genuine killer. From the first radar warning, it had been broadcasting interference across the whole approach, and it worked. Once. One bridge-bound FP1, flying its programmed line on satellite navigation, drifted 40 meters off course and plowed into open ground. A kill the Zhitel's crew would never even see confirmed. A real one. But here is where the Russian plan quietly broke apart. The 10 drones headed for the convoy were not on satellite navigation at all. They were terminal control variants. For the last mile and a quarter, a human operator took over through a live optical camera in the nose, steering by sight, watching the target fill the screen. The Zhitel could shove the satellite solution 50 meters sideways all it wanted. A human eye watching a tanker grow in the frame corrected that last 50 meters by hand, in under a second. Think of it this way. The Zhitel had spent all night learning to jam the radio, and it was very good at it. But these 10 drones weren't listening to the radio anymore. They were being flown by a pair of eyes. You can lock every door in the house and still lose, if the intruder was never planning to use a door. The jammer was blind to the one form of guidance it couldn't touch, which left the convoy's survival on the last guided missile system in the fight, the Tor M2. And in 90 seconds, that Tor would come within 6 meters of a 6th kill, and miss it by the exact height of a truck. At 02:14, the trap closed. The 8 bridge drones showed on the podlet screen first, 30 to 40 seconds ahead of the convoy group. And for those 30 seconds, the Pantsir crew had the fight they were built for. One group of targets, one clear firing solution, 12 missiles on the rails. They opened up. 3 FP-1s dropped to Pantsir intercepts in the first 12 seconds. The Tor M2 killed a 4th as it crossed into its sector. Then the Zhitel nudged a 5th into the dirt. 5 of the 8 bridge drones, gone. The crew must have felt it was working. Then, at 02:14:35, the second bearing lit up. 10 more drones from the north, the convoy package, 2.5 miles behind the tail of the column. And the Pantsir had nothing left to give. It had spent its priority and most of its ready missiles on the bridge. Its radar was still slave to the bridge bearing. Against 10 inbound drones from a completely different direction, the same system that had killed 3 in 12 seconds could now manage 1. 1 missile, 1 kill. Its reload cycle simply had not finished in time. The Tor became the convoy's last guided defense. It killed 2, cycling as fast as its fire control could sequence. At the head of the column, a Zu-23-2 crew walked tracer fire onto a drone at 600 meters and tore it down. The second gun killed 1 more at 400, firing across the gap to the nearest tanker. The gunner aware that 10 degrees to the right, he'd be shredding his own cargo. 5 of the 10 convoy drones stopped, 5 did not. Then came the Tor's last shot, 9 seconds between its final bridge intercept and the first convoy drone reaching terminal range. The crew swung to the northern bearing, locked the nearest FP-1, and fired. The missile tracked for 2.5 seconds. Then the drone dropped below 20 meters, beneath the Tor's minimum engagement altitude, and the seeker lost it against the road. The interceptor passed 6 meters overhead and self-destructed behind it. The closest any Russian system came to a 6th kill. Missed by the height of a truck. There was no second attempt. The 5 survivors were already inside the column. The first operator steered onto a tanker dead center. On his screen, the cylindrical body swelled until it filled the frame. 3 seconds of a steady crosshair. Impact. 40,000 liters of diesel caught, and a wall of flame climbed off the highway, radiating 1,200 degrees Celsius into everything on either side. The second FP-1 hit a tanker 2 vehicles up. The tank split, and diesel flooded the asphalt, running downhill toward a third truck 30 meters on. The third struck an ammunition carrier loaded with 152mm shells. For 4 full seconds, nothing. Then the propellant caught, and secondary detonations blew the truck apart from the inside, hurling burning fragments the length of the road. The fourth hit the Grad carrier. The rockets didn't go all at once. They cooked off in sequence, each ignition spitting propellant across the highway like a burst main. The fifth found the drone support truck. Lithium batteries and generator fuel lit into a chemical fire that would outlast every other flame on that road. 5 hits. 5 vehicles. Less than 30 seconds, end to end. And the column was packed too tight for the fire to stop there. Heat off the burning tankers poured out at 1,200 degrees. 30 meters away, 2 more tankers ignited within 90 seconds. Never touched by a drone, just close enough to cook. Fragments from the detonating shells set off propellant in 2 more. The fire jumped chassis to chassis until the center of the column was one wall of burning fuel and detonating ammunition. By 02:18, 5 hits had become 10 fires. The bridge ahead was gone. 10 vehicles burned in the heart of the column, ammunition still cooking off in staggered blasts that kept any crew from getting near. And the roughly 40 trucks that had never been touched sat intact behind them. No crossing ahead, no way to reverse, and nowhere left to go. When the sun came up over the last road, the tally was brutally simple. Across both strikes, 32 drones had destroyed 2 bridges and 10 vehicles. The fuel, the shells, the rockets, and the drone equipment a whole frontline sector leans on for a week of fighting. And here is the detail that should unsettle the Russian side most. Their air defense did not fail. Across both attacks, it intercepted 18 of 32 drones, 56%, more than half. The Pantsir crews fired accurately. The Tor nearly stole a 6th kill it had no right to reach. The Zu-23-2 gunners tracked and killed in the dark, over open sights with hand-cranked barrels. By every ordinary measure, those crews did their jobs well. It still wasn't enough, for a reason no amount of accuracy could fix. Every one of those systems was built to protect one target at a time. Ukraine didn't try to overwhelm them with numbers. It handed them 2 targets in the same 90-second window and made certain the second couldn't move. You cannot outshoot a problem like that. The kill rate was never the point. Strategically, this was never really about a bridge or a convoy. It was an attack on the shape of Russian logistics itself. Destroy the artery, and the blood has to find another vein, a vein you already have zeroed. Every remaining crossing between Crimea and the southern front now sits inside the same 124-mile envelope that reached both of these. The road network hasn't just lost 2 bridges. It has lost the freedom to be predictable, because the lesson of that burning road is not that Ukraine can hit 50 trucks. It's that Ukraine no longer needs to. Destroy one road, and the enemy sorts his own targets into a line for you. The trucks will find another way across. Ukraine only has to know which one, and wait. So here's the question worth arguing over. Is this the future of every supply route in this war, where the road itself becomes the weapon, and moving at all means moving into a trap? Drop your take in the comments. If you want more breakdowns like this one, subscribe and hit the bell. There's a new analysis every week.